IGES. I greet you all, and of course UNSCAP. I greet you all a very warm welcome to this high-level plenary titled as Mobilizing Finance for a Circular Climate Resilient South Asia, Blended Finance, Regional Funds, and Private Capital. Just briefly before I invite the speakers on stage, setting the tone of the plenary. So as we all understand that South Asia stands at a pivotal juncture in the journey towards scalable economic transformation. Also, before I continue, may I please request everyone to keep their cell phones on silent. And also, if you can all just listen, it is going to be very interesting and engaging session for everyone because this is a key question, finance. How it's going to be, what will happen. Development finance is shrinking. So if you are concerned about it, you will be listening to this session. Thank you. Countries such as Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, Nepal, and Sri Lanka have initiated national level strategies and pilot projects to promote circularity. Somewhere it has been formalized, at some places it has just begun. So there are different sectors which are growth sectors or, which contribute towards your GDP, which are export oriented like textiles, ranging from SMEs and startups involved in recycling. So most of them are informal as well. So how in the current scenario where we are facing climate shocks, economic shocks, and then growth-led challenges, how do we mobilize the finance? Because climate change, circular economy transition, private sector-led growth, these are some of the questions that again become a question mark when we say, where the finance is going to arrive. So with this, I'll be inviting the panelists on stage. Mr. Zulfikar Yunus, who is the Senior Advisor at Climate Finance CVF V20. Please welcome the panelists with a round of applause. Mr. Zafar Masood, who is the CEO of Bank of Punjab, Pakistan. Dr. Pushpam Kumar, Chief Environmental Economist from UNEP, is joining us online. Thank you, sir. Dr. Prem Kumara from Institute for Global Environmental Strategies, Japan. And because at this session, we are also doing a closing for the 16th South Asia Economic Summit. So we are delighted to have been joined by Dr. Paras Karul, Executive Director, SOTI, Nepal. Sir, if you can please join us at the podium. Dr. Famida Khatun, Executive Director, Center for Policy Dialogue, Bangladesh. Okay. And I would also like to invite Mr. Saad Yusufi, who is the CFO at the Coca-Cola Company, Pakistan. Now, this session is going to be moderated by none other than our Executive Director, Dr. Abis Suleri, who is also the Chairperson for Board of Directors at NDRMF. Sir, please show us that you all are awake. I can't hear the claps from at the back. Thank you. I now hand over the session formally to Dr. Abis Suleri, and we will be joined by the Finance Minister, Senator Mohammad Aurangzeb, shortly. But before that, let's just have a very interesting discussion. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Zainab. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate your interest in the topic. I know it's late in the day, but your presence in the hall that actually shows your interest and relevance of this topic. Finance Minister would be joining us shortly, but before that, we can start our discussion. If Uzma, आप लोग comfortable हैं? Yeah, we were thinking that this time we can fill in one portion of the hall, so that at least, I know it's a big hall and filling all the seat is a challenge. So we'll be discussing climate financing for climate initiatives in this session. Whatever would be discussed in Balam in COP30 starting from next week, whatever was discussed in COP29 in Baku, and in fact, looking at this Paris Agreement, when developing countries they opted to join Paris Agreement. The finance has been a backbone of all this. Just to give you a context, in the Kyoto Protocol, countries, they were divided in two categories. One category was which are developed country, Annex 1 countries. And because of their resourcefulness, they were asked to reduce their carbon emission, while the Annex 2 countries, which are developing countries, like Pakistan, they were exempted from it. It was voluntary for them to reduce their carbon emission. In Paris Agreement, there was this negotiation, and negotiation was that rich countries, they would provide finance, and developing countries, they will also reduce their carbon emission. So it was a compromise on both sides that developing countries, which were Annex 2 country and were exempted from their carbon emission, they agreed to reduce their carbon emission in return of the finance that they will be receiving from a developed world. But since then, one has been observing that there is no such finance coming from the developed world. In Baku, in COP29, while the developing countries, they were asking for a total funding of $1 trillion. And this number, it came from the UN experts who actually calculated the cost of adaptation. So this in response to this $1 trillion funding, the COP29 agreed on a funding of $300 billion, and that too was blended finance. And blended finance mean that from public sector, the governments, they can do whatever they can provide, but rest of the funding would come from private sector. Theoretically speaking, I am against this idea. I think the public sector and the governments and international governance model cannot absolve from its responsibilities by shifting the burden to private sector. But pragmatically speaking, I think this is the only way forward. If the governments, they are not going to provide it, and if America, for example, has already again withdrew from Paris Agreement, it means that someone has to compensate for it, and that's where private sector's role comes handy. But how this would be done, that's a big question. It's a $300 billion question, Zafar Saab, that how will this private sector can compensate for this whole thing. And in order to discuss it, we have the experts from industry who can perhaps guide us. They can give their ideas about it. So the way I'm trying to make this session quite interactive, it will not only be that I'll be asking questions. The panelists, please feel free to ask questions from each other if you like to. So let's make it an interactive discussion. So what I'll suggest that we can have a couple of rounds of questions, maybe 2 rounds to begin with. And if you try in the first round, perhaps you can take 5 to 7 minutes to set the scene. And in the second round, within 5 minutes, we will try to then capture your follow-up ideas. Let me start with the Zulfikar Saab, Zulfikar Yunus, who is senior advisor to this CVF forum. Zulfikar Saab, you have served on all sides of fences, public sector and now international intergovernmental organization. Do you think it's a doable idea? Can governments they depend on this blended finance model in case of Pakistan? Are we prepared for such a blending finance model? And if not, what are your suggestions?
Thank you very much, Abid Sulari Saab. First of all, let me thank SDPI, especially Abid Sulari Saab, for inviting me to this very important session. I think, and also I think I must congratulate SDPI for holding this session here in Allama Iqbal Open University, because I have never been here earlier, and this is the first time I have been here, and it's wonderful campus. They have such a wonderful facilities, which were, I think, underutilized. And now I think with your initiative, we will have more of such conferences and seminars here. So coming to your question, I think first let's look at the circularity issue at that moment. So the developing countries and transitional countries, which mostly South Asian countries are, so we can't afford to waste, because we are already short of assets, we are already short of resources. So a lot of wastage which goes into, which is not accounted for, is actually our loss. So first of all, I think we must emphasize that circularity is very, very important. And because the issue is so big in terms of, the wastage that we have in Southeast Asia especially. So we need to adopt a regional approach. So I must, congratulate SDPI to hold this regional workshop, and let's brainstorm a regional solution for this. So coming to the blended finance or to the climate finance, I have been in the finance division. So looking after public finance, expenditure, external finance earlier for 3 years. And then for the last 1.5 years, I was in Ministry of Climate Change, looking at the climate finance specifically. And I was also focal for GCF and GEF, these two, major global funds, offshoots of UNFCCC's framework agreement. And for both, for GCF, we have a kind of a steering committee headed by the ministry, and then we have provinces, we have other federal divisions part of that. But the projects that we used to take to the GCF, the message that we got from GCF was that they will encourage blended financing instead of grant, instead of highly concession loans. So now the trend is going towards that. So although we don't like, as you just mentioned, that in NCQG also, which was agreed in COP29, there was a general agreement that we should have, while grant and concession loans would be there, but blended finance would be the focus. So in NCQG's $300 billion by 2035, major portion, they see that would come from the blended financing, which means that essentially private financing or private capital. So if we talk about in the context of Pakistan, I think some of the very good initiatives has taken place here, although there is a lot of room to do better. We can improve and we can do more. But still, I think some of the very good initiatives which have so far done. One is that we have finalized our carbon policy. And we are in the process of finalizing our carbon ecosystem, which means that registry, MRV, carbon market secretariat. So once we start, the carbon market projects, I think this will essentially be. So this would essentially attract private financing from the carbon, investors, developers, and aggregators. So I think we will have a private finance from this carbon initiative. Secondly, government recently have notified the taxonomy, which essentially means that now we have a very clear classification of what investments are green, what investments are not green. So because earlier there was a issue of greenwashing, where banks didn't know that if they are lending this money, is it actually green or not? Now the need is that we have to now move forward. Once the taxonomy is there, we have to now start working with the banks so that they enhance their green lending. So that is another important step if we want to encourage private finance. Secondly, SCCP has sustainability guidelines, and SCCP is now working on, to top, let's say, 100 PSX listed companies to ask them to actually give sustainability or emission reduction targets by 2040 or 2060. I think that will set the stage once our listed companies, corporate sector, because a lot of carbon dioxide emission is happening through the industry, and corporate sector is basically important role to play in that. So I think from that perspective, if SCCP gives sustainability targets to these companies, I think they will then come up to actually go to the commercial banks for having projects which need investment to decarbonize their industry. So I think that will set the stage. Finance division has also issued sustainability finance framework and green sukuk investment. So these are two other instruments where we can, expect more investment coming from the private sector. There are two other documents which are very important from government perspective. One is the Climate Prosperity Plan, which Climate Vulnerable Forum with the Ministry of Finance and Climate Change Ministry, they are developing, whereby we are expecting, impact investor, also private sector investment coming to Pakistan in climate projects. So I think briefly, Abid Sahab, this is the stage. And I think this is something which other regional countries can also follow. That would help to adopt a regional approach. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Zulfikar Sahab. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Senator Mohammad Aurangzeb, Finance Minister of Pakistan. I know he has a very busy schedule, but this is the importance of topic that he actually spared time and he joined us. Senator Sahab, this is the third day of our annual Sustainable Development Conference, 28th Sustainable Development Conference. And this year our topic is Sustainable Development in the Emerging World Disorder. And in disorder, we are talking of not only climate change, geopolitical tensions, this shrinking donor and multilateral space, AI and demographic changes, etc. So we feel that within all of this disorder and this disruption, as this year's Nobel Prize winner in economics, they tell us that it's creativity out of disruption. So we need to think of what sort of creativity can be thought out of it. Now, in this particular plenary, we are talking of climate financing and the role of blended finance. What exactly it is about, and Zulfikar Yunus Saab was explaining Government of Pakistan's preparedness and different vehicles in climate change ministry and State Bank, which can actually be used to attract this climate financing. The second will be talking about the role of private sector. Due to logistic, we shifted, this is about 400 people's capacity also, we shifted all the participants on this side. So I will be requesting the panelists to be on podium so that the people sitting upstairs, they can actually see you because of the pillars perhaps. On my left, the panelists will not be very visible. Now, after listening from Pakistan's public sector preparedness, can I come to Dr. Pushpam Kumar? Dr. Pushpam Kumar is from UNEP, Kenya, and Nairobi. Dr. Saab, as I said in the beginning, that theoretically speaking, of course, it looks quite bizarre that international polluters, they shift the burden of for supporting and financing climate initiative to private sector. But pragmatically speaking, this is the only way forward. So from UNEP's point of view, I just wanted to get your thoughts in next 5-6 minutes about this blended finance and how different developing countries, especially you are based in Nairobi, in African countries, how they are reacting to it, and are they prepared to attract private sector climate finance. You see, when we are talking of GCF and funding from various other multilateral vehicles, the challenge was that we were not prepared enough to prepare bankable proposal. Now, how we will be preparing those bankable private sector proposals if we were not prepared enough to float proposals for GCF? So, your thoughts about it, sir?
Thank you, Dr. Suleri, and Honorable Minister. First of all, our Executive Director, Inger Anderson, sends you greetings from UNEP headquarters to take such a wonderful topic, which is so close, not only to Pakistan, but to the entire South Asian regions. Now, to answer your specific question, Dr. Suleri, and Honorable Minister probably can say more on that. Blended finance is the only option which countries of Amazonia, Sub-Saharan Africa, and South Asia, they are eyeing for. Second, if you see the emission cap report, which is basically telling us, that is from UNEP, that how much we are deviating from the Paris agreed 1.5 degrees Celsius. And the fact is that we are nearly in the domain of 3.2 degrees Celsius, which is very disturbing. And the kind of impact, that means that we have to add more into national action plan through all mitigation as well as adaptations. But everything is not lost. If you see the carbon storage and the additional incremental mitigating projects undertaken, it is exceeding now from all sources $100 billion. But it is still not the magnitude which the developing countries want to have. So where is the problem? What is the stumbling block for a country like Pakistan or any middle income countries where the per capita income is not more than 12,000? The challenge is that there is a problem of carbon pricing. We don't have a carbon price still which can be taken credibly by the international agencies and the developed world, who can have the confidence in transferring and buying the carbon credit. Second, whenever we go ahead with generating what you are saying, blended finance, there is no recourse, the course, correction. And in large number of countries, that is what UNEP, GCF, and also other multilateral trust bank, they are sharing that countries are not able to manage and attract on a credible basis that what is their effort in managing carbon that must be rewarded. And as you know, an honorable minister would know, that private sector is very smart.
MIS people, can you check the internet,
they don't,
please?
they are not.
Dr. Pushpa, if you like, you can switch off your video. I think we are finding it.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, please switch off your video. I think that would improve the internet connection.
Are you able to hear me now?
Yes, please. Yes.
Are you able? Okay. So basically the lack of the course correction, the lack of a credible carbon price and credit market. Second, there is also a fungibility problem. And finally, whether it is Pakistan or India or Bangladesh or even Britain or other parts of Asia, they have administrative issue between the center and the province. And what is needed by the federal government is not supported by or enabled by the local institutional and regulatory framework. And that is where a lot of work has to go. So to answer your question, Dr. Suleri, Basically, we have to go for a credible estimate for the carbon pricing. Secondly, the scale where the action is happening at the province level, that has to play in tandem with the federal government, and that is very much true for Pakistan too. I will stop here and will come in the next round. Thanks very much.
Dr. Pushpam, if I can quickly ask you a secondary question, and that is about this double accounting of carbon credits. Is UNEP or some of the expert groups, they are working on it, how to avoid the double accounting?
Yes, that's a very, very good question. The Adaptation Finance Group is helping UNEP and also GCF to avoid this double counting issues. And very, very soon, there will be a draft presentation in Brazil next week where you have the manual how to avoid it. I'm happy to share a copy of that with you, Dr. Suleri, maybe after next week.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Pushpam Kumar. I'll be coming to Pakistani experts, the domestic local experts, but I need to go to Dr. Kumara Jagat from IGS Japan. Dr. Jagat, I know IGS is working on various climate initiatives. Do you think, are you also working on blended finance, and what are your experience of working on blending finance so far? Any lessons learned?
Okay, thank you very much, Chair. So, yeah, as you mentioned, so I represent in IGS, Institute for Global Environmental Strategies in Japan. So we have different teams for different research areas, but our main objective is sustainable development, development in the Asia Pacific region. So I'm not directly involved climate change issues, but my research team is mostly work on sustainable consumption, production, and the circular economy area. So I feel as the last 2 days we discussed, circular economy is very much important when we're looking at the climate change issues, like my previous speaker also mentioned. So we need to change from this linear model of development to circular model of development. But this transition is need a lot of money. So that's why last 2 days we heard this to transform this model. We need a lot of changes in the production from all the lifestyle of the production systems and our societies and all these cost. So we need money. So that's the main issue. And then as we discuss also the governments cannot do, we are very well aware that the blended finance is very important. So we are now starting to not only, even we are research institute, not only this government research fund, but it's also working with the private sector and looking at this blended financing for the work. So actually, we are now working SDPI and other partners in South Asia in developing the South Asia regional circular economy framework. And this is very important as discussed. So even with this climate change, circular economy, and biodiversity pollution, all these should be synergies. So this is maybe one way that we can make more efficiency in funding creation. So this work with this one, I feel like we are not still in the beginning of this blended financing in South Asian context. We know that some work are doing by private sector. Their contribution is there. But what we trying to finalize with this South Asia regional framework, to have something like regional blended finance mechanism, maybe like South Asia Circular Finance Facility. So that's kind of a new thing we would like to bring to South Asia and see how we go forward in making this blended financing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jagat. Paras Kharal from Soti, Nepal. Soti, South Asia Watch on Economics, Environment and Trade is one of the leading think tank in Nepal. Almost a peer of STPI in Nepal. Paras, is there any discussion on carbon markets or carbon financing in Nepal? Because Nepal is bestowed with the huge natural forest and this natural resources. So in Nepal, are you working, or is the government of Nepal working on carbon pricing policy for environment?
Okay. Thank you. I'll be brief. So Nepal is endowed with a lot of forest resources, water resources, and we are also part of international mechanisms that yield revenue through preservation of forests. The government is also introducing policies to benefit even more out of it. So what the sort of a consensus is that the clean development mechanism was there. However, we were not able to utilize it almost at all. And one reason was the lack of capacity to come up with bankable projects, technical capacity, and sell those projects and generate a revenue stream. Now, Article 6 under the climate agreement in Paris, has a renewed mechanism for international transfer or sharing of carbon credits. And the thrust now is to avoid the fate that we had with regard to the clean development mechanism and start afresh and utilize this mechanism. So that's how the policy focus has been in recent times. And there has also been some concern as to what will be the fate of our, say, exports in terms of agriculture and forestry exports in the context of new sustainability-based trade measures. For example, the deforestation-related measures in Europe, or the carbon border tax adjustment. Will they emerge as new forms of non-tariff barriers, right? Because all of these are part of the global industrial policy in the West arising from tackling climate change. Thank you.
What are the major sources of climate finance in Nepal, if you could highlight?
So we have applied for, and some projects have been coming through the, as far as my knowledge goes, the LDC fund, for climate financing, and the RED Plus is also a mechanism that we are using. And apart from forests, the use of biogas facilities have also been linked to climate finance under the same framework. But the amount of money coming so far is in drips and drops, right?
GCF, Jeff?
Yes, we are in the process of applying for projects. Thank you.
Thank you, Paras. Saad, if I can come to you, I have then loaded question for Zafar Masood sir, but you are representing Coca-Cola International and CCI. When we're talking of blended finance, we are also talking of role of private sector in it. Is CCI, I know as part of your global ESG commitment, you are already trying to reduce your emission commitments, but is CCI working towards buying or obtaining some carbon credits, and what other models of climate financing from private sector are you following or adopting? If you can come to the rostrum, please.
Assalamu alaikum and good evening, everybody. It's It's a pleasure to be part of this regional forum. We're talking about circular economy and financing, and I'm really happy because as financiers, we're talking about other than numbers, we're talking about sustainability. We're talking about circular financing. Now, circular financing is not just a sustainability goal. It's a $4.5 trillion opportunity that South Asia has to offer. Talking about Coca-Cola, circularity is at the heart of what we do. We usually drive with two pillars. One is design, and the other is the partner to collect. By 2035, we at Coca-Cola look at using 45% of the packaging material which is recycled, which includes 35% of recycled PET. And also by 2035, every bottle and can that we sell, we look at calling back, or 75% of that we want to collect that. That's the ambition and goal that we go on with. Our belief is the challenge of scale. The public sector investment alone cannot provide the infrastructure that South Asia needs. We need to attract sustainable private capital that will help build it. There has been some conversations about the roles of development financial institutions and regional institutions on this. But before coming on to that, I would want to mention that when we are at Coca-Cola, we look at EPR programs and also direct sourcing of recycled PET, which helps us not only to de-risk projects, but at the same time create a demand for such sustainable solutions. In terms of, for us, how we operate is we focus more on reducing the collection cost. And since it's an AI and machine learning time, we look at sorting through that. And we also use chemical recycling to help and keep it at scale and sustainable. Other than that, I believe carbon pricing is what is being talked about. We focus on carbon pricing as well, because we have to make sure that recycling is not just a cost of compliance we're looking at. It is something that we look at, something that can give us environmental and financial returns in the longer term. There is what I also believe is the roles of financial institutions and DFIs in general will help if they can provide catalytic capital. An early tranche, first loss tranche can help companies like Coca-Cola to come up and invest confidently. Apart from that, I think there was a conversation, Dr. Pushman also mentioned that we need a regional South Asia Circularity Fund. That will really help. Because what we believe it's going to do is going to create the impact that we need. We will have a forum that will not only diversify the risk, it will create a panel where people can share their experiences around those lines and build the confidence for institutional investors to join the race on this front. Banks and DFIs can also help standardize the matrices and to gauge the reduction in collections and also the greenhouse gases that the industry generates. We have to take a leap forward. This conversation has been going a long way, and I believe corporates have a big role to play on this. We have to actually move from pilot pilot projects to something transformational. That is what we need. As a corporate, there has to be long-term sustainability goals that will help circularity. What they usually say is demand creates the market, but the market attracts investment. So if you have that, you have everything going. What I also believe is the challenge, I understand, is immense, but like I mentioned, the potential of South Asia in circular economy is amazing. As Coca-Cola, we are ready to serve as an anchor partner in this and partner with all our investors, DFIs, regional institutions, and take this journey forward and truly unleash the true potential of circular financing in South Asia. Thank you.
Thank you, Saad. Zafar, not only as the CEO of Bank of Punjab, but also the chairman of Pakistan Banking Council. Yesterday, Harun Sharif floated a very interesting idea, having a climate bank. So he floated the idea that instead of different funds, why not to have a climate bank in Pakistan, which can then take care of the financial needs and can negotiate with the peer banks on a model of financing. Pushpam Kumar gave the idea of not only in Pakistan but everywhere the issue of this center and provinces. We know the 27th Amendment is on the annual, and do you see any good coming out of 27th Amendment if we can make it part of amendment that climate financing will be a must for provinces? And my very final point in it, as CEO of Bank of Punjab, you have been working on different innovative models of climate financing. So would you like to share some of them? And again, if I may request you to join the podium so that people they can have a better visibility.
बहुत शुक्रिया सलैरी साहब, Minister साहब. It's really a pleasure to be here, in this very illustrious gathering. Great learning for me, new thoughts, new ideas, and as always, SDPI has taken a lead on talking about all those issues which are generally kept on the side and not put in the mainstream for discussion. There is one more, Minister Saab, by the way, tomorrow, there is a session on crypto and digital currencies. So SDPI, maintaining its tradition, is bringing all those concepts in the forefront which needed to be discussed and sorted out. Dr. Saab, I always considered you as my friend, but the questions that you've posed on me are not something that one could pose on a friend, by the way. So thank you very much for putting all the difficult questions to me.
But indirectly, I'm posing it to finance minister.
So let me just first take a crack on giving you some kind of sense of what the blended finance is all about. This was not part of my notes, but I thought that it's important to skin the cat on when we talk about blended finance, what does it mean? Very briefly, what's blended financing? It's essentially the ability to de-risk the risks which are unknown to the conventional lenders. For example, in the case of commercial banking, the climate is something which is unknown to them for two reasons. One, lack of expertise to assess the risk, and two, the gigantic nature and the financing requirement is so large that generally it puts the conventional lenders at the back foot. For example, according to the World Bank, the funding requirement for climate infrastructure is $348 billion between now and 2030. And this is based on our commitment under Paris Club for NDCs, which is to reduce the carbon emission by 50%. 15% of that has to be funded through our own resources, and 30%, and 70% has to come through the international support. The second important thing is that it helps in the requirement, as I mentioned, in the context of Pakistan, is so gigantic. And by the way, this is one aspect where the entire world is connected to each other. And more so as we come to the geographic regions, the linkage is even more stronger and pronounced. So therefore, it's a collective problem that we all need to tackle. But even then, the financing requirement is so large that it has to be a more inclusive and collaborative effort on the part of everybody, and hence the requirement for blended finance, where the risk capital, minimum risk capital could be leveraged for a larger financing needs. Why blended finance is required? As I said, it's scalability and more so from a risk assessment standpoint. And that leads me to the question that you asked, Dr. Suleri, about the climate bank. The climate bank idea is a good idea, but we have, when I talk about specifically, I would suggest that rather than exploring this only in Pakistan, and I'm going to pose a kind of recommendation to the Finance Minister Saab, because I know Finance Minister Saab is very focused on making sure that these DFIs that we have are channelized to use their resources more towards the development finance, which they are not doing right now. So I'm going to put a recommendation in that context here, in the context of Climate Bank. But I would strongly suggest, Dr. Suleri, that perhaps this forum is a good idea, that we can talk about a regional climate bank, not just the Pakistan specific one, perhaps. And there, if you need any assistance from Pakistan Banks Association, let me volunteer myself to assist you in that respect. Taking it forward with our friends from Nepal, from India. India doesn't want to come through, it's fine. We can do it without India as well. But nevertheless, this is something that we must explore. Finance Minister Saab, on the climate bank side, I always thought about it, and I thought I'm going to come to you and talk about, in another context also, how these DFIs could be made more specialized institutions. The dilemma is that, the banking in Pakistan is very universal, as you know, and the specialization piece is missing. If we can somehow designate 1 or 2 or 3 DFIs as climate-specific DFIs, then the blended finance piece can be tackled from there, and that is one aspect that we can explore. The problems that we are facing right now are actually multiple when you talk about, the tapping into the blended finance in Pakistan. Starting from the fact that there are lack of projects available. Green taxonomy, Zulfikar Sahab has talked about it. He led that project and needed to be urgently rolled out and completed. With provinces, while the funding sources could be tapped through the federal government agencies. And that coordination and collaboration is currently lacking. And that's where Minister Saab, this 27th amendment piece that he talked about, Dr. Suleri, I think this may be an opportunity for us to see how we can fit in the climate financing piece in there, so that more control could come to one entity. Right now, it's too fragmented, and perhaps that control is lacking. Happen to have this great opportunity at our doorstep right now, when this 27th amendment is being talked about. The other important thing is that, and the entire credit of ladies and gentlemen goes to the finance minister for leading the way he is leading the entire IMF negotiations and program, which is not an easy thing to do, by the way. And the credibility that he's built with these institutions, Mr. Saab, perhaps the G20 framework in which the risk guarantees could be extended, as it happened, as we saw in the case of COVID earlier, that could also be explored and taken forward, given that, the kind of credibility that you've built with these institutions. Bridgetown initiative has already allocated $100 billion. And I think we are already there. Minister Saab has already tapped some funding from there already. On the blended financing side, when we talk about the mechanics, there are two pieces to it. One is the fact that in the project financing, perhaps the selected risk could be picked up because you can't do the entire thing through the blended finance as such, through the specialized financing piece as such, or 100% guarantee could come through for those infrastructure projects. But surely for consumer side, and 40% of our emission is actually transport driven. While the biggest culprit of climate is livestock and agriculture, they're the biggest victim too, because on average 5 to 7% of the productivity is compromised because of the climate issues that they are confronted with. And then if you do not regiment the input to the soil, then the climate related hazards travel through the soil, and it spoils a larger space than just the soil per se where it's been utilized. So there, the first loss guarantee could be utilized. So on the infrastructure side, perhaps the larger commitment is necessary from blended finance, but for the portfolio approach, I think this is the first loss guarantee. Dr. Dari, you talked about Bank of Punjab doing something in that space. We are working with Government of Punjab, and we are also working with the federal government, by the way, on setting up the EV financing, a two-wheeler and three-wheeler, and that's where the first loss guarantee structure is coming very handy to us. And we are very keen to, we, by the way, already financed 5,000, electric bikes. And you will be very pleased to know, and khawateen ko to uspe taaliyan bhi baja deni chahiye. Majority of them, 4,000 of them, are actually women. So, that's a side effect of, when we talk about climate financing initiatives. One last thing, Mr. Saab, and I know this is again very close to your heart, and this is something which is the need of the hour. The problem is that, and वो हर जगह पे हम प्रॉब्लम ढूंढने की कोशिश करते हैं in the banking sector. हर जगह हम उनको, कभी हम climate bank ढूंढ लेते हैं, कभी हम, this is beyond the banking as such. It's a collective problem. It's an individual problem. हम सबको in our own part, अभी साथ फरमा रहे थे circularity की बात, अपने ताईं whatever we could do as an individual, we need to do that as a starting point in the blended financing, and everything else come later. Even at our level, whatever blended financing we can do in our houses, at least we should do this as collectively as possible in our communities as much as possible. But Mr. Saab, the most important aspect is that the capital markets have to start delivering on this. Until and unless capital markets put their act together, and that's why, ladies and gentlemen, I try to motivate you to look at as the individuals to contribute to this. And when the green bond, for example, that you talked about will come into the market, then you are the ones who have to finance it and fund it beyond just the returns, but looking at the medium to long-term benefits to yourselves, to your health, and the benefit of your future generations, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Zafar Sahab. I'll be inviting our chief guest, but before that, just wanted to get a few comments from Dr. Pushpam Kumar again. Dr. Pushpam, you heard all the discussion from the podium. Wanted to get your take on it. You must have understood some of the potential, some of the challenges. And do you think the idea that you have been promoting at UNEP, this inclusive growth, the GDP, where you keep on saying that we need to recalculate our GDP, incorporating our natural resources endowment, can it give some sort of advantage when we talk of blended finance as some sort of endowment?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Suleri. So before I answer that specific questions on beyond GDP and why we need to move beyond GDP, in the light of all other discussion, in order to enable the blended finance in Pakistan and in general in South Asian regions, one question which you have mentioned, and I reiterate, this is on the basis of the survey done in 155 countries, lack of policy coherence. All of you are big experts. I don't need to say anything, but you know what I mean between the provinces and the center. Second, blended finance requires regulatory and institutional support. That is not coming up. Third, in most of the cases, donor agenda is very reductionist, mechanical, and flat. It does not differentiate what Vietnam needs and what Pakistan needs. That is where what you call it, the tailor-made approach is needed, differential approach is needed. Fourth, we still don't have much of the climate risk assessment capacity in the country, both physical risk and transitional risk towards green energy, for example. We have very, very basic capacity. We need to improve on that in order to attract blended finance. Fifth, there are plenty of local knowledge, indigenous knowledge, which can be very handy to that in the climate finance, and the risk assessment is hardly internalized. In KPA, in Sindh, we have some fantastic system of to cope with the drought. Are we including into the incentive design for the private sector? Probably not. We need to do that. Finally, information and innovation. Innovation is needed for a leapfrogging of the situation where private finance can come. That is not happening. And as I said, the final point, and they are the mantras, that mid-course rectification is not designed in the system and the national climate policy, even in Pakistan or India or Nigeria or Morocco. I can tell you from all these countries that must be done. So if we work on this, we have better chance to succeed. Second question on the beyond GDP. Certainly, I mean,
Dr. Pushpam, if I asked you, you mentioned about 155 countries where we have this challenge
survey.
of
Yes.
this coordination and between center and province. Has any of these 105 countries they made any changes in their constitution to improve the situation as per UNEP's knowledge?
I think in Morocco, King Mohammed VI he has constituted a interministerial task force to have better alignment of the provinces. So what is happening in Ifran or in Fez area, and what is happening in Casablanca and Rabat, they are trying to sync the policies, both, I mean, regulatory measures. President Lula in Brazil has constituted similar kind of case, and it has been a great success. So there are some examples, but a lot needs to be done. And of course, South Asia is probably not the best example on that, but I think Pakistan can take a lead. I mean, the way many good things are happening in Pakistan, that can set the trend in the region and beyond. So, you want me to come to the beyond GDP?
Yes, please.
Briefly?
If you can quickly also comment on it beyond GDP.
Yes. So I think the Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, has established a task force coming from the General Assembly that in order to measure the progress and sustainability, GDP is not very reliable. So instead of depending upon the flow, which is GDP, we should try to estimate and see the change in the stock of wealth on natural capital, produced capital, and human capital. And again, here, Pakistan has shown some good initiative where natural capital has been estimated. And by the way, in Pakistan, natural capital in some region has gone up, which is a great news. I mean, in Asia, probably Japan is the only country besides Pakistan where natural capital, I mean, maybe due to afforestation program and some other similar watershed management scheme, that the natural capital has gone up. So what I'm trying to say, that the experts and the decision makers, they are agreeing that in order to measure progress, well-being, including inequality and poverty, it is better to depend upon wealth, estimate them, and put as a supplementary information in the economic survey, for example, which Pakistan brings, so that we can see, just like business firms, the way they see their closing and opening stock, we can also see how much wealth we have eroded during this year, or maybe we have gained, whatever. So that will help the decision makers, especially the Conservation Ministry, Ministry of Finance, the Development Practitioner, Governor of Federal Bank, and a range of private sectors, how change in wealth per capita is moving in the country. Scientists agree, policymakers are in agreement, and that is where most of the countries have also ratified, shown their faith, and they have pledged that they will move beyond GDP. And I think Pakistan has produced, thanks to you, SDPI, that they have also shown how it can be done, but a lot more needs to be done. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pushpam Kumar. And that brings me to our chief guest, sir. You actually heard different viewpoints from the panelists. Some of them, of course, are in a recommendatory tone. Some of them, they are questions. And of course, one is quite keen to understand that how all of this discussion can be linked back to RSF, the facility that we are taking from IMF. Can that be an entry point or an opportunity to upscale the blending finance and climate finance initiative in Pakistan? I particularly asked Dr. Pushpam Kumar of UNEP about some of the countries which have altered their arrangements of central provinces coordination, and he gave the examples of Morocco and Brazil. Should we expect something like that happening in Pakistan as well, especially for carbon market and carbon finance? So, and a lot more. So for next 25 minutes, floor is with you, sir.
I won't take 25. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Abid Sulehi Saab, first of all, thank you for the kind invitation. It's a real pleasure to be here. My apologies for being slightly late. I do want to congratulate you and STPI for the range of topics which are very timely, and also the stellar speakers and delegates that you had here, continue to have here, both from within Pakistan and especially all of the guests who have joined us from outside Pakistan. So a very warm welcome from my side to everyone. Before I come to climate finance, because there are a couple of topics which I think you have already covered, and one I was just told you're going to cover tomorrow around the new economy. I'm just going to briefly touch on those and then at least share my thoughts on climate finance. Having been in Washington and Riyadh over the last few weeks, what we see at the global level, and I'm sure that's been discussed here, is a pretty remarkable resilience in terms of the global GDP. In fact, as you know, a couple of weeks back, the global GDP estimates were actually revised upwards. And that resilience is a really combination of a few things. One, on the more tactical level when it comes to tariffs, because the countries by and large did not go for tit for tat, and mutually assured disruption so far has been contained. Another thing is that a lot of countries, including what we are doing here in Pakistan, are actually well on their way vis-a-vis structural reforms. And the last thing is the role of the private sector and diminishing role of the governments and the public sector. So I think these are all good things which is happening at the global level. But having said that, obviously the uncertainty is high. You mentioned in terms of the rising protectionism, supply chain, if not disruption, at least readjustments, and the geopolitical tensions which are there. And therefore, around the world, including here in Pakistan, we need to ensure that we have enough fiscal and external buffers to meet any exogenous shocks as they come forward. Since you are, I think Zafar mentioned, you are going to talk about AI and crypto tomorrow, and I thought I just spend a minute on that in my role as the chairman of the Pakistan Crypto Council. That's the council, as you know, which was formed earlier this year based on the chain analysis and the number of citizens who are already participating in this activity. And from our perspective, it's certainly from a business perspective, we want to take it forward in the context of larger Web 3.0, blockchain, AI, and of course, crypto is a subset of that. Also, I think bringing it into a regulatory framework makes a lot of sense. So as you know, we have a virtual asset regulatory authority, which has come into being as an ordinance at the moment, and it's going through the Senate Finance Committee so that it can be passed through the Parliament as we go forward. And and that should then lead towards the licensing regimes, etc., as we go forward. But from our perspective, while we are taking a lot of help from those countries and locations and jurisdictions who have been on this journey before us, we are very clear that it's going to be Pakistan first. And all the risks which are peculiar to Pakistan, whether it's capital flight, whether it's KYC AML, whether it's suitability, because we did see 2 or 3 weeks back quite a correction on that front. So I look forward to whatever your group comes up tomorrow in terms of deliberations, and we would love to have your feedback, both myself and Bilal, who's Prime Minister's Special Assistant on AI and crypto. Now coming to the topic at hand, climate finance. तो उस पर बहुत बातें हो चुकी हैं, I guess, over the last 3 days, and of course all the speakers have also talked about that in terms of everything that we have, also in terms of the enabling factors, right? National Adaptation Plan hai, NDCs hai, the Climate Prosperity Plan with V20 was handed over to me in Washington a couple of weeks back. So it's already there with identified project. State Bank की जो green taxonomy की अभी बात हुई है, the guidelines are out. From my perspective, they should have been out some time back, but in any case, better late than never. So I think we have a clear way forward. The National Climate Finance Strategy, if you recall, we rolled it out in Baku last year. So ये सारी वो चीजें हैं जो already are in place. And we keep on talking about, hundreds of billions of dollars of gap here and there. But मैं इसमें थोड़ा सा pragmatic view लेता हूँ, which might be different even from my cabinet colleagues, कि जो है उसको तो इस्तेमाल करें. And we have enough at this point in time for us to roll things out. And of course, the gap is huge. But let's get started. You talked about IMF. Yes, we have $1.3 billion in terms of the RSF facility from them, but it's not only that. The other MDBs, Asian Development Bank, came in with $500 million in December of last year. We entered into a 10-year country partnership framework with the World Bank Group. And as you know, this time around, उनका हमेशा हमने प्रोजेक्ट पे उनसे loans लिए हैं, funding लिए है, financing ली है. But this time around, we talked to them about two existential issues for Pakistan. It's climate change and population. So 4 out of the 6 points under which $2 billion are available per year for the next 10 years have to deal with this, and climate finance में दोनों उसमें aspects हैं, decarbonization का and climate resiliency. So with respect to the Green Climate Fund and Loss and Damage Fund, quite frankly, I'm not impressed. These are small figures to start with. These are huge bureaucracies. जहाँ एक्रेडेशन करने में बड़ा इतना टाइम लगता है, तो वहाँ डिस्पर्स करने में तो और भी कम टाइम लगता है. तो उनसे 10-20 बिलियन डॉलर अगर मिलियन डॉलर आ भी जाता है तो कोई इतनी बड़ी बात नहीं है. So it's something they really have to think through, and hopefully in Belen they will be thinking through the loss and damage fund. I believe Senator Sherry Rahman was here under her leadership in Sharm el-Sheikh. This thing all got started. And 4 years, with due respects, I think we should, of course, engage with them. But जो sources already हैं, उनको इस्तेमाल करना चाहिए. And then the private sector as well. Ecomen is coming up with a $90 million, which is a climate action fund. And that's the kind of ingenuity and the type of resources which we can. I think they're going to be closing their fund hopefully pretty soon with the help of the likes of IFC and BII, etc. Capital markets की बात हुई है. देखें, ये हम थोड़ा सा भूल जाते हैं कि ये चीज़ें हम पहले कर चुके हैं. जहाँ तक green bonds का ताल्लुक है, a few years back, WABDA as a parastatal was the first one to actually issue a $500 million green bond. And at that time, it was 6 times oversubscribed. So the kind of interest, and this was sort of pre-COVID, was up to $3 billion, and they did not go for a green shoe option, but ये कर चुके हैं. Right now, we have been talking about the issuance of Panda bond and accessing the Chinese capital market. We are pretty close to it. We're still going through sort of the final approvals, but it's again going to be a green bond as we go forward. बाकी जो यहाँ बातें हुई हैं carbon markets की, इसमें भी Sindh has taken the lead, as you know. Their mangrove project is the first one which involves carbon credits. And what we need to do is to replicate and scale these things up. Debt for nature swaps, a lot of people have approached us. From my perspective, I think we just need to get the narrative away from stress deal situation. So अगर इसमें कोई possibility हुई तो हम इसको ज़रूर देखेंगे. I think a lot of speakers have, Dr. Suleri talked about the capacity part, right, in terms of bankable, investable projects which can be structured, which can be monitored, and which can be reported to international standards. So वो जो technical support है from my perspective at this stage, whether it's at the federal level or it's at the provincial level, Zafar आपने भी उसका जिक्र किया, I think is going to be very critical. And that's where the private sector should continue to step up, and including public-private partnerships. आखिरी चीज़ मैं ये कहूँगा कि last year when I, for the first time, went to Washington, and I was asked to join the Coalition of Finance Ministers for Climate Action. And the thought process there was that, of course, the ministers of climate change in every country should be sort of leading the charge in terms of where we are, where we want to go. But there's almost a universal consensus कि अगर finance ministers अपने budget में इसको mainstream नहीं करेंगे, so this will not go mainstream. And therefore, I think getting it into the policy frameworks and budget process is absolutely going to be critical. And I'm very clear because, as you know, I've been talking about these two existential issues because obviously people are very interested in the next IMF tranche and the structural reforms and everything else. And I think those are important. Inshallah, we are on a good trajectory. But the reality is कि कल भी मैंने एक कॉन्फ्रेंस में कहा कि 2047 में when we get to be inshallah 100, if we don't deal with these two existential issues, it's not a question of right now कि 5% की growth है कि 6% की growth है. If we have to really realize our potential, these will have to be dealt with a real sense of urgency. और इसमें मैं आखिरी बात सिर्फ ये कहूँगा कि देखें ये काफ़ी चीज़ें जो है ना इनके लिए हमें कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल अमेंडमेंट्स की ज़रूरत नहीं है, हमें और इंस्टीट्यूशंस की भी ज़रूरत नहीं है. All we have to do is to coordinate better in terms of what we have today, and then sort of take that forward. There's a lot that can be done before we ask for new policies, new toys, because that's somehow, you know, part of our DNA कि हमें और चीज़ें चाहिए जो हैं उसको पूरी तरह यूटिलाइज नहीं कर रहे. So I think my submission would be कि as you know आपका जो सारा ये अभी सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट का और जो भी आपका है इसमें आप हमें ज़रूर इसमें हमें गाइड करें. डॉक्टर मुसद्दिक वाज हियर विद यू, उनको और उनकी टीम को हमें गाइडेंस दें ऑन द हाउ पार्ट ऑफ इट. बार बार ये कहना कि व्हाट व्हाई हम तो मिशन करते नहीं हैं, अब हमें तो अडेप्टेशन चाहिए. ओ भाई हो गया ना, अब वी आर वे वी आर, दैट्स द हैंड दैट्स बीन डेल्ट. नाउ लेट्स डील विद इट and let's take ownership, and take that forward. Once again, I'm very grateful for the invitation, and wish you all the best for the rest of the conference. Thank you.
Thank you. Zainab, do you have
Yes, we do have a group photo. With this, we conclude the session. Thank you so much to the distinguished panelists, to the chief guest for gracing the occasion with your presence, and to all the participants who are sitting here. I would now like to invite the panelists to join us and the chief guest here for a group photo. And we would also like to present our publications to the chief guest that we have launched during our annual conference. So we have launched our anthology and journal that STBI produces this time. जी जी सर लेकर आते हैं.
तो ये पाकिस्तान का जो मुख्य राइट से नेक्स्ट जो एक्टिविटी जो कि हमने कंपाइल की all pictures are all taken with